All right, well, we're pretty excited. And this trailer right here, behind that guy, is our Porsche 911. We're gonna get it off, get it unloaded, put it in Adam's garage, and see how this all works out.
Hey, it's Adam and Jeremy.
And it's pronounced
Porsche.
As you can see, this car behind us and all the boxes, we've got a new project.
It's a 1973 Porsche 911T with a 2.4 liter, 5-speed, mechanically fuel injected engine. We're pretty excited. I don't know why I said pretty excited.
So this is the first video in a series of maybe 18 months or so, if things go according to plan, of reassembling this car.
This was my uncle's project, the Porsche that he started almost 30 years ago. We're gonna help him get it over the finish line, get this thing back together and on the road.
So what you can expect in this video is our journey of going down from Washington to California to pack this thing up and all these boxes and get it transported back up here. And while we were down there, we had an opportunity to chat with Jeremy's Uncle Matt about his last 30 years with this car and his experience as a Porsche factory master tech. When we first arrived at Matt's shop, we found that he had already packed up a majority of the parts. So we helped him finish up packing while we waited for the trailer to arrive. Now, because Matt is a trained Porsche master tech, he's planning on keeping all of the engine and transmission parts to complete the rebuild and help us install it at a later time. Let's take a look at those parts around his shop.
This is an extra setup of old exhaust stuff. This is a GT muffler setup.
Oh, cool.
It's dual exhaust. This is all the engine stuff here.
Oh my gosh. Alright, so I know what you're thinking, but don't forget, Matt started this project 30 years ago, and while there's stuff all over the place, it was so fun looking at everything with him and watching him rediscover all these parts he hasn't seen for so long. And look, there's the transmission under the stairs.
Oh, I do have those. Those are nice to have. They don't leak nearly as bad. No, these are all ready to go.
Yeah.
I've already lapped these in to the cylinder heads.
See, the cool thing about this is you're still finishing most of it.
That's what's so valuable right there.
Is that the MFI?
Yep. Yeah, that's the whole shooting match right there.
At one point in the process, Matt found his notes about how he was going to originally build everything. And at the top of that list was a reference to his wife that has since passed. Her name was Deneen and was Jeremy's aunt.
And then you notice it has D's 911 because I originally bought it on Deneen's birthday.
Oh man. You bought it on her birthday?
On her birthday, yeah.
And this is a good time for us to pause for a little family history. Deneen was Matt's first wife and the mother of their 3 kids. In 2010, she lost a battle with cancer and left a gaping hole in her family and community. I'll let Jeremy finish telling you more.
Let me share a little bit about my Aunt Deneen. You know, she was indirectly involved in setting up the first date between my wife and I. She always made it a point to make sure I knew she believed in me. My aunt wasn't just family to me. She was a beacon of positivity, touching lives as a dedicated teacher and a selfless soul in her community. Her belief in others was unwavering. That's why thinking about all we're going to learn and the community we're going to build around this project, naming it after her just feels right. So we're calling it Project Janice, in honor of my Aunt Janice Deneen Hidalgo.
Now that you know some history and why this project is so important to our entire family, let's get back into the details of that list from Matt.
And what I've done is I already got the headlight buckets. I got a lot of the rubber seals, and not all of them. I do not have a front windshield. I got a rear window. The carpet kit's in it. I bought it. The headliner's in the car dashboard. I never got the rubber boot for the gas flap. Left and right blinker lenses, I think I ended up with those. Engine compartment seal, I never did get that. I refinished the wheels. I got 4 tires, and I got 5 tires.
5 tires, yeah.
So that was my original list that I.
You gotta cross some of those things off, man.
So it is almost 30 years in process.
Yeah.
But, it's been garage kept the entire time.
Yeah.
Or at least indoor, yeah.
It's better than a barn find.
It definitely is.
Oh yeah. Hi. Hello.
0 to 60 and however fast you can tow it.
Yeah. I'm gonna fall out of this.
Do not. Man, I need a golf cart.
I know.
I don't remember how to get in this place. I've only used it once in the last 6 years.
Yeah.
Filthy.
What do you got?
This.
What do you got there?
Protective layer dirt. You got it? Make the turn.
Yep. Is that super easy to steer?
Yeah.
Getting all the stuff ready for transport here. You sad to see it go, Uncle Matt?
Except for Uncle Matt, he's not ready for transport. Only if you beam me up somewhere.
You think these are worth putting in our
put in the
car
car.
so they don't?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just afraid of the glass on the front getting jostled.
Keep it down. All right, you're in.
All right, we got an extra bumper and some pieces and Porsche down there. And it's gonna travel home with a jet ski. After we got the car packed up and sent it off, we went back to Matt's shop to talk about more parts and the Porsche. We started by taking a look at the engine block, and he showed us how this oxidation forms on magnesium, but he shows us an example where he glass beaded another part to make it look nice and clean. Uncovering this engine uncovered a lot of memories, and he was able to tell us about a lot of the work that he did to prepare this block.
Now you'll see different spots here where there were like core plugs. We always took and epoxied them up. Those would develop leaks. Sure. So I went through this whole thing and put time certs on everything. The oil cooler sits right here. Oil pump sitting back here. It's dry sump. Put all new bearings in this when I did it, and it was not rode hard to put away wet. As far as it didn't have a lot of time on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see the cross hatches in there.
To hold this there.
This is piston number 2.
You know you're partially responsible for this channel we have going on, right?
You kind of got your love of your cars from hanging around me, so.
Especially the VAG kind.
There was so much cool stuff in Matt's shop. He started showing us all of these things that he had collected as a technician. This cigar box filled with service bulletins and technical specifications from different models that he worked on over the years was one of my favorites. He showed us his collection of ultra cool race posters from the 80s, and even one of the most recognizable posters I remember as a kid growing up. Oh, I remember this poster. Oh my gosh. I've only seen pictures of the, oh, and it has your name on the plate.
That's pretty cool.
That is crazy. At this point, he had started telling us a bunch of stories about his career, so we thought what better idea than to sit him down in his own shop, start asking him questions about how he got into this trade, and try to learn as much as we can about this Porsche that he has had for 30 years that we are about to reassemble.
Country boy, raised on a ranch, knew at an early age I wanted to work on cars. I went to a dealership that I had a buddy that worked at. He said, hey, we'll be looking for a guy sometime or another. You just keep checking in. And so for about 6 months, I checked in. And the day after my last final at college, or actually the day of the final, I walked in the afternoon and they said, hey, we want to talk to you. And I said, okay. This is, do you have an application? Said, before I had my name finished, when can you start? And I go, you don't even know who I am. And he says, well, it's this other guy will speak for you. And Alan Victor is his name. Our dads worked together, so a family friend, and so he was my journeyman when I started in the industry. And when it comes time to finishing this Porsche, he and I are actually going to reunite and finish the engine together. So I'm kind of excited about that. So 1982, June, started working on the first dealership. Was there through a couple of owners.
This was a Porsche dealership.
It's a Porsche dealership. And I was there for 7 years. When I was hired, 1982, I made $6.50 an hour. Moved my way up from apprentice to a journeyman. When that dealership closed, I was actually the shop foreman. Absolutely loved it. And I moved up from ground zero all the way up to the point that I was the lead guy working with Porsche directly and with troublesome cars. And from there, That Porsche dealership closed. I went to another one. Spent 3 years there where I finished off all the rest of my training to become a master Porsche tech. So I was master Porsche tech by 1989. At that time, there was only 10 people that had the same credentials as me in the United States. I got kind of known as an electrical specialist. I also troubleshooting all kinds of problems to the point that when other dealers had problems with cars, they would actually transport that car to where the dealership I worked at. And I would go through and do a workup the next day. An engineer from Porsche would come out. We would go through all of my findings. Most cases, I fixed those cars. And shortly after that, a technical bulletin would be written. And it would go out to all the technicians across literally across the United States and the world. But there was a time when I was ready to go off. And then I spent 4 years in an independent garage. And then I walked away from it. While I was at that garage, all of a sudden this Porsche came in and it dropped the valve. It destroyed the engine. The people didn't have the money to fix it. So I offered them, I would take care of the bill since I was the one that did all the work on pulling it apart to find out what was wrong. I could eat my own labor. And they says, well, how much would you give us for it? So I'll give you $250. It says, give me, and they brought me the pink slip and I had a pink slip for this 911. And that was probably, actually, it was February 10th, 1993 or 94. I can't be perfectly honest on that, what year, but it was when I was still working in the car industry.
Well, when Jeremy and I were going through boxes, we found the license plate and the last registration was 1993. So it had to be February of 93 when he bought it.
By the time this one came around, Ed had already owned 3 914s, all 1974 2-liters. Loved the 914s. Part of it was the 911 was always kind of unattainable for me, just because they were just that much, a little bit more than what I was making. And by that time, when this car came around, I had one son at the time, and feeding a family, and I couldn't pass up the deal. $250, whether I just sat on it for a while or I fixed it. It was an avenue in which for me to get ultimately what I wanted down the road. Little did I know that 73s, 72s, and 71s would become so popular and so desirable. I love 911s. If I had my dream car, it would be an 89 Carrera. I think it was the best 911 they ever built, hands down. That would be my dream car. So this was a way for me to get to my dream car, is building this someday and selling it and saying, hey, I did all the work myself. Pretty much from the ground up, as far as mechanically, putting all the pieces and parts together. Because as a factory trained Porsche tech, we did interior, we did seat covers, wall windows. I mean, everything. The only thing that we wouldn't necessarily do is body and paint. After I paid the $250 for it, the first thing I did is just started ripping out all the interior, all the window frames, all the pieces and parts out of it. The engine was already apart. I didn't have a plan necessarily for that at that point in time. I had a guy that I went to college with, but we remain friends to this day. And he ended up going to work at a body shop. And so I approached him and says, hey, I got this car. I'd like you to do the body work and the paint. And he goes, well, that's fine. And he come to find out he had a Porsche 914, and I ended up selling him a engine and transmission that he was very happy about. So it worked out good. So it went into the body shop. It sat there for 5.5 years. It only was in the paint shop portion of the body shop. No body guys ever worked on it, only the paint guys did. And when they were slow, they would go over and work on it. And so they metal finished everything. The headlight buckets were rusted. I bought factory headlight buckets for it. Factory originals, they installed them. Then there was one cancerous spot in the front by the windshield. They metal finished all that. Then they decided that when they come time to paint it, I wanted to keep it the original color.
Now would be a great time to mention that the original color on this is Dalmatian blue, also known as Oxford blue. A quick search on the Rainbow site shows that the rarity on it is about 4 out of 5 paint cans, which I think is pretty cool and makes this car even more special.
Because pretty much I wanted to keep the car bone stock. And they ended up taking the shell into one booth, and all the rest of the pieces that they'd taken off the hood, the rear deck lid,
the doors were all off and all the other pieces. And the guy went in and sprayed on Friday afternoon. Then they cranked up the heat on the booths simultaneously and let the paint bake until Monday morning, at about 120 degrees they kept it at. To come out just looking good. I was just so amazed with it. But my plan always was to keep it as stock as possible, but do the upgrades to the engine that Porsche had come along. I just kept buying parts. I'd see something in the early days or come across it, I'd grab it. When eBay came around, I started buying pieces and parts. And my hope was always to go through and completely build it from the ground up and say, hey, the master Porsche tech did all of this. And because I figured it would help the value, and most people recognize that. And there's things I did, things I haven't finished, and now I'm looking forward to seeing it get completed.
You've heard Matt talk about how the original engine dropped a valve. He's now going to go through some detail talking about how he was able to source the engine we have now.
This engine and transmission is not the original for the car, but if you look at the engine numbers between the one that came out, and I don't have the cases anymore because they were destroyed, to the one that this one is sitting right here, they're within about 60 numbers of each other. So this is a standard T. This engine and transmission was taken out of a car at the shop I was working at. The gentleman that owned the car was transporting the car to Southern California because he was going to do an R race setup on it at a shop in Southern California. When he, on his way down there, he was killed in a traffic accident. It was real tragic. And his family members come in and says, hey, we don't want anything to do with the car, but it's the engine and transmission worth some money. And my boss that I was working for at the time, Alan, says, you know, I'm not really interested, but that guy will be. And I looked his stuff over and I says, you know, I got $1,500 cash. Will you take it? And they said, yeah, absolutely. You know, and so I ended up with an engine that was quite fresh and a transmission that was fresh. And so I felt like I did pretty darn good. And so ultimately what I did is I split the cases. I went through and put time certs on all the cases because of weak points with magnesium cases, put all new bearings in it. Everything was quite fresh anyways. I cleaned up everything, started matching everything. Then I ran out of time because of kids and life. And that's you know, kind of where I've been. It is mechanically injected, which is a lot of fun. I happened to run across the lightweight clutch setup, so that it has a lighter weight, so it actually spins up a little faster. So there's different things that I collected over the years that, you know, I grabbed, well, you know, I may need that, or I may need that, and just saved all of them. And the whole thing was just bringing them all back together at one time and putting it on the road. And, you know, kind of like having stock GT exhaust, you know, dual exhaust. It's fun to listen to these cars with that exhaust system because it brings them alive. It's just a different sound altogether.
Sure.
And you know, that's one of the things that I still will make the hairs on the back of my neck stick up is when you hear a 911 getting with it. It's just there's nothing in the world like that sound. It is just a sound all its own.
The other cool thing is that you and that original mechanic that brought you in out of high school or out of college are going to reunite to put this engine and transmission back together and bring it up for us.
Yeah, I've been out of the industry long enough that I don't, you know, I probably still have the skills with my hands, but it would take me a lot of time and a lot of reading of manuals back and forth. And my buddy Alan, who I worked with for so long and worked for, is semi-retired. He has a shop, and I've already approached him, and we're going to go through and we're going to build this together. It'll be fun for us to get everything together and laugh and talk and go through and set it up and do the cam timing and just get it prepped. Then, you know, we'll go through the transmission and freshen it up just to make sure it has all new gaskets and everything. No leaks. That's one of the things that I felt I always was extremely good at, is making these things not leak. The old ones could be a nightmare. And I learned a lot of tricks being factory trained even to the point that there are some things I learned that Alan never got to experience. So it's fun being able to work in that situation again.
Well, I know we're looking forward to it.
Yeah.
You're going to see two ends of the spectrum here. Master mechanics doing what they do, and two guys in the garage who love cars and are going to be learning a lot of this stuff as we go through the process of assembling the rest of the body and interior and all that kind of stuff.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this, please consider sharing it with somebody else that you think would love it just as much.
Follow along with us as we restore this piece of history back to its former glory.
I thought you were going to say piece of garbage.
Not garbage.